Today I'm going to explain a thriller movie called Club Zero. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The movie opens in an elite private school where we meet a nutrition teacher named Miss Novak. It is revealed that the school recently hired her to promote healthy eating among students. Her club currently has a few members, and she asks them why they have joined. A girl named Helen reveals that she wants to protect the environment and reduce global warming. Another girl, Ragnar, states that she wants to reduce her body fat and be fit for sports. Then there is Elsa, who wants to develop discipline, and Fred, who wants to stay healthy because he has diabetes. Finally, there's a student named Ben who says that he's just here to earn a score for his scholarship. Miss Novak appreciates them for joining the club and briefly explains the concept of conscious eating. It is about reducing food intake without feeling hungry. She explains that the human body requires less food than is commonly believed and discusses the benefits of eating less. Miss Novak then teaches them a breathing exercise that will help them appreciate ingredients and eat more mindfully. The students practice this exercise and immediately feel a shift in their mood and appetite. After their session, Miss Novak meets with the principal, who warmly welcomes her to the school. She then assigns Miss Novak the task of improving children's eating habits. The latter appreciates the trust and assures the principal that the children are in safe hands with her. The scene then shifts to Ragnar's home, where she is eating with her parents. Her mother advises her to watch her weight and avoid eating too much. Hearing this, Ragnar is offended. But her father quickly explains that her mother didn't mean it negatively. He then asks what she learned about conscious eating, and Ragnar demonstrates the breathing exercise to her parents. Next, we see Elsa having lunch with her parents. Dad scolds her for behaving like her mom and not eating anything. But Elsa clarifies that she's just practicing conscious eating, which she learned at school. Meanwhile, we see her mother giving all her food to a dog. After a few bites, Elsa rushes to the restroom and vomits what she just ate. Mom catches her in the act but says nothing and leaves. Elsewhere at school, Fred is eating lunch alone when Miss Novak approaches him. She then leads him into her office, where there is a small shrine. The two sit in front of the shrine and practice mental exercises together to cultivate mindful eating habits. During the next club session, Fred discusses how he has been eating less in recent days, which has resulted in a significant increase in his energy levels. He mentions that the change has also allowed him to reduce his insulin dose. Miss Novak is very pleased to hear this and explains that while fasting, the body undergoes a process called autophagy. During this process, the body uses its own cells for energy, which she describes as highly beneficial. She emphasizes that autophagy can reduce fatigue, heal diseases, and potentially extend life by 10 to 20 years. The scene then cuts to Elsa, who is studying in the library. Miss Novak approaches her and the two go for a walk together. During this time, the teacher compliments Elsa on her strong willpower and ability to control her body. Elsa admits that she wishes there was no food in her body at all, but her father forces her to eat. In response, Miss Novak explains that society doesn't tolerate those who don't eat because it frightens people. She elaborates that most people are unaware of their capabilities and falsely believe they need to eat regularly to survive. In another scene, Helen, Elsa, and Ragnar sit down to eat potato wedges for lunch. Helen and Elsa eat only one piece each, but Ragnar cannot control herself and eats 3 pieces. She feels guilty afterward and goes to the bathroom to vomit the food. Her friends chastise her for lacking self-control, and she apologizes. Later, Ragnar goes to Miss Novak and expresses her guilt for overeating. The teacher reassures her that it is normal to falter at times and gives her herbal tea to help suppress her appetite. In the following scene, Fred is speaking with his parents, who live in another country. He misses them a lot and asks if he can come visit. However, they promptly refuse and insist that he finish school first. Annoyed, Fred hangs up the phone and heads to his dance practice, but he cannot concentrate. His dance teacher notices something is wrong and asks what happened, but Fred doesn't respond. Instead, he goes to Miss Novak and tells her how his parents do not seem to care about him. The teacher feels genuinely bad for the boy, so she assures him that he's not alone. The following day, she meets with the principal, who inquires about her progress with the students. Miss Novak responds that everyone is doing well except for Ben, who appears to be disobedient. The principal reveals that Ben is one of their brightest students and has applied for a full scholarship. She also mentions that he has a single mother and that his father passed away long ago. Miss Novak understands his situation, but she refuses to grant him the scholarship score until he makes progress. Later, the principal summons Ben and has a conversation with him. She asks him to take nutrition class seriously, otherwise, he will risk losing his scholarship. Later in class, Miss Novak asks Ben why he has not been following her advice to eat more consciously. He responds that he fears he won't be able to concentrate on his studies. But Miss Novak assures him that this is only a myth and that the truth is quite the opposite. Upon hearing this, Ben finally reveals that he doesn't want to disappoint his mother, who works very hard to cook for him. Miss Novak then gives him a speech on how he should stop living just to please others. He should also focus more on himself rather than meeting his mother's expectations. Surprisingly, Ben is moved by her words and promises to change his eating habits from now on. In the next scene, Ben is at home, where his mom prepares a delicious steak for him. When he hesitates to eat, she explains that he shouldn't starve himself just for a scholarship. Mom suggests that maybe he could go to another school instead. However, Ben says he doesn't want to quit and believes that eating less is good for him. His mother is disappointed to hear this but asks him not to push himself too far. The following day, Miss Novak commends Ragnar and Elsa on their progress. She also tells them about a worldwide association of people called Club Zero who don't eat anything at all. She explains that it is a secret because the general public is not prepared to understand it. They ask if this is possible, and Miss Novak responds that she is also a member of Club Zero. The girls are thrilled to hear this and want to know how they can join in. In the evening, Fred and Miss Novak go to an opera theater and have a good time. Despite their age difference, it seems that they have started liking each other. The next day, at another session, Miss Novak advises the group to stop eating and describes its supposed benefits to the mind and body. She also makes them hold hands and chant a strange verse. Following this, the students stop eating completely and use various excuses to avoid food. When their parents catch wind of this, they become worried. One day, Ben's mom arrives at the school and expresses concern about how Miss Novak is manipulating her son. However, the principal claims that the children are simply practicing conscious eating and are not starving themselves. She claims that Miss Novak is a responsible teacher who would never do anything to harm her students. After their conversation, the principal visits the cafeteria to check on the students. Ben and his friends pretend to be cheerful in front of her and proceed to play with the food as if they're eating. The principal leaves feeling relieved, unaware that the students later throw their food in the trash. One morning, Ben tries to wake up Fred, only to find him unconscious. He immediately contacts the authorities, and Fred is taken to the hospital. It turns out that he stopped taking his insulin, which has worsened his diabetes. His father also arrives and meets with the principal to discuss his son's well-being. The principal claims she had no idea Fred was skipping his insulin shots. The father understands that it's not her fault, but he asks her to watch over Fred, who has become extremely thin and weak. In the following scene, the dance teacher tells the principal that he saw Miss Novak on a date with Fred. He says that if Fred's parents find out, it will be a huge scandal. Later, the school holds a staff meeting, and everyone agrees that it's inappropriate for a teacher to meet a student in private outside of school. They also talk about how the children appear to have developed eating disorders since Miss Novak arrived. They then make a collective decision to expel her from school before the situation worsens. Afterward, the principal meets with Miss Novak and dismisses her from her position due to her involvement with a student. The latter doesn't try to defend herself and simply leaves in anger. She then proceeds to her shrine and addresses it as an Almighty Mother. Miss Novak accuses the Almighty Mother of abandoning her in this way. She states that she doesn't want to give up as she is very close to her goal. Afterward, Miss Novak meets with Fred and asks if he still trusts her. When he responds with a yes, she suddenly kisses him. The scene then shifts to Elsa's house, where she is pretending to cut her food intake to avoid eating. Her mother is also seen sneaking food to the dog. Seeing this, her father gets very mad and forces Elsa to eat a piece of sausage. She reluctantly obliges but soon rushes to the bathroom to vomit. On the other hand, we see Ben and Ragnar in their homes, both refusing to eat. The next morning, Elsa's parents bring her lunch, but she proceeds to give a speech about overconsumption. She claims that the human body does not require food and that she can survive solely on her willpower. When her parents continue to insist, she finally eats some food. But all of a sudden, she vomits everything and eats it again, much to her parents' disgust. Later, the parents of these brainwashed children gather to discuss the situation. They consider calling Miss Novak because she is the only person who can persuade the kids to change their minds. Ben's mother is opposed to this, knowing how manipulative that woman is. The others understand her concerns, but they are also worried that if their children do not start eating soon, they will die. After some time, the parents drop their children off at Miss Novak's home. Only Fred, Ben, Ragnar, and Elsa have arrived, as Helen is on vacation in Switzerland. All of them appear very weak and pale, but they begin to ramble about how good and powerful they feel. Miss Novak commends their actions and informs them that they are now ready to join Club Zero, where they will live an eternal life. She states that they are liberated and will no longer be subjected to societal and parental pressures. In the evening, Fred visits Ben's house to celebrate Christmas with his family. Ben's mother cooks delicious food for them, which the two boys eat without any hesitation. On the other hand, Ragnar and Elsa are also seen happily eating with their parents. The next morning, when the parents go to wake up their children, they are nowhere to be found. They teenagers have left a letter, explaining that they are in a better place now. They also ask their parents not to look for them, as it will be in vain. Elsewhere, Miss Novak is seen leading the four to an open meadow. They then form a circle and join hands to perform some kind of ritual. In the final scene, the parents meet at the school for an urgent meeting. Helen has also arrived from her vacation, and she joins the group. The worried parents question her about what happened in those nutrition classes. They wonder where Miss Novak took their children and whether they are still alive. But a brainwashed Helen supports her teacher and informs the parents that it is they who will perish. The movie ends as she looks directly at the camera and declares that they can be saved. But they need to have faith.